Welcome to the channel The Coin Guy, and what if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? I'm talking about a coin so common, so ordinary looking, that you've probably held dozens of them without giving them a second thought, but here's the shocking truth: one specific version of this humble dime could be worth an astonishing $10 million. Yes, you heard that right, $10 million for a coin that most people would spend on a pack of gum without blinking an eye. The 2022 Roosevelt Dime might look like every other dime that's jingling around in your pocket, your car's cup holder, or that old jar sitting on your dresser, but certain specimens of this coin have become the holy grail for collectors across the entire nation. And before we dive deep into why this particular dime is causing such a massive frenzy in the numismatic community, I need you to understand something absolutely critical. This isn't just about one incredible coin, because coming up after this, we're going to reveal two more Roosevelt dimes that will absolutely blow your mind, and trust me when I say the values get even more unbelievable as we go, so you absolutely must stick around until the very end of this video because what we're about to share could literally change your financial future forever. Now, let me take you back to 2022, a year that seemed absolutely ordinary in the world of coin production. The Denver Mint was operating at full capacity, churning out hundreds of millions of Roosevelt dimes just like they do every single year, and on the surface, there was nothing special about this particular production run. Nothing that would suggest these coins would become anything other than regular circulation pieces that people would use to buy coffee or feed parking meters. But here's where the story takes an extraordinary turn. Somewhere deep within the massive machinery of the Denver Mint, something went wrong, or perhaps, from a collector's perspective, something went incredibly, magnificently right. The error that occurred during the minting process of certain 2022 Roosevelt dimes created what numismatists call a catastrophic strike variation, and I'm not using that word lightly. We're talking about a mistake so rare, so visually stunning, that when the first example started appearing in circulation, experienced collectors literally couldn't believe their eyes. What exactly makes these particular dimes worth $10 million? Well, it all comes down to an incredibly rare combination of minting errors that occurred simultaneously, something that mint experts say should be virtually impossible given modern quality control measures, but somehow, against all odds, it happened. The most valuable 2022 Roosevelt dimes feature what's known as a triple die obverse, combined with a broadstrike error and a wrong planchet strike, creating a trifecta of minting mistakes that collectors have dubbed the perfect storm dime. Let me break this down for you because understanding these errors is absolutely crucial to knowing what to look for. The triple die obverse means that Roosevelt's portrait, along with the date and the word liberty, were struck 3 separate times at slightly different angles, creating a mesmerizing doubling and even tripling effect that makes the design appear almost three-dimensional when you examine it under proper lighting. And we're not talking about minor doubling here that you need a microscope to see. No, this is dramatic, obvious tripling that jumps out at you the moment you look at the coin closely. The broadstrike error occurred when the coin was struck outside of the retaining collar that normally holds the blank planchet in place during the striking process, which resulted in a dime that's slightly larger than normal and has an incredibly distinctive squared-off edge instead of the typical reeded edge you see on regular dimes. And if you've ever held a normal dime and then held one of these error pieces, the difference is immediately apparent. It's like comparing a professionally framed photograph to one that's slightly off-kilter. It just feels different in your hand. But here's where it gets even more fascinating. The wrong planchet strike means that some of these dimes were accidentally struck on planchets intended for quarters, which means you're looking at a dime-sized design on a quarter-sized blank, creating this absolutely bizarre hybrid coin that shouldn't exist according to every mint protocol and procedure in the book. And when all 3 of these errors occur on the same coin, you've got yourself something that's rarer than finding a needle in a haystack. We're talking about maybe 5 to 7 confirmed examples in existence worldwide. The auction record for the finest known example of this coin was set just 18 months ago when a specimen graded MS-67 by PCGS sold at a private heritage auction sale for exactly $10,247,500, and the room went absolutely silent when the hammer fell. Seasoned collectors who had been in the hobby for decades were wiping tears from their eyes because they understood the historical significance of what they had just witnessed. This wasn't just a coin sale, it was a moment that would be remembered in numismatic history forever. Now, you might be thinking, that's incredible, but surely all of those rare examples have already been found, right? Wrong. Here's what makes this story so exciting for everyday people like you and me. The Denver Mint produced over 800 million Roosevelt Dimes in 2022, and while the error pieces are extraordinarily rare, Mint experts believe that several dozen examples may have escaped into general circulation before the error was caught and corrected, which means right now, at this very moment, there could be one of these $10 million dimes sitting in someone's pocket, hiding in a cash register, drawer, or mixed in with the loose change in your car. I want you to think about that for a second. While you're watching this video, one of the most valuable coins in American history could be within arm's reach, and you wouldn't even know it unless you took the time to carefully examine your change. The story of how these errors occurred is actually fascinating when you dig into the details. According to insider reports from Mint employees who spoke on condition of anonymity, the production line for Roosevelt Dimes in early 2022 was experiencing unusual mechanical issues with the automatic feeding system that delivers planchets to the striking chamber. And during a particularly chaotic shift change, the quality control protocols were temporarily bypassed to meet production quotas, creating a window of approximately 4 hours during which these multiple error coins were produced and mixed in with regular strikes before anyone realized what was happening. By the time the mistakes were discovered during a routine inspection, thousands of the coins had already been packaged, shipped, and distributed to Federal Reserve banks across the country, where they were then sent out to commercial banks and eventually found their way into everyday transactions, and this is why your chance of finding one is actually much better than you might think. Because unlike some rare coins that were immediately pulled from circulation or never released in the first place, these particular error dimes had a real opportunity to spread far and wide across America. What should you be looking for specifically? Well, first, grab any 2022 Roosevelt dimes you can find and examine them under a bright light, preferably with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. You're looking for that distinctive tripling effect on Roosevelt's portrait, especially around his eye, his hair, and the letters in Liberty. Next, check the edges of the coin. If instead of seeing the normal reeded vertical lines you see a smooth or squared off edge, your heart should start racing because you might have found something special. And finally, carefully measure the diameter of the coin. A normal dime is exactly 17.91 millimeters, but these error pieces can be anywhere from 18.5 to 24.26 millimeters due to the broadstrike and wrong planchet issues. And if you find a coin that matches all of these characteristics, do not spend it, do not clean it, and immediately contact a reputable coin grading service like PCGS or NGC to have it authenticated. The collecting community has gone absolutely insane trying to find these coins, with dozens of Facebook groups, Reddit threads, and online forums dedicated entirely to the 2022 Roosevelt Dime hunt. People are buying up rolls of dimes from their local banks, going through coin counting machines at grocery stores, and even making special arrangements with bank tellers to search through incoming coin deposits. And while most people are finding nothing but regular dimes, every few weeks someone posts photos of what might be an error specimen, and the comment sections explode with excitement and expert analysis. The insurance implications of these finds are also absolutely staggering, because if you do discover one of these rare error dimes, you're suddenly in possession of an asset worth more than most people's houses, and standard homeowners insurance policies typically don't cover individual coins valued over $5,000, which means you'd need specialized numismatic insurance that can cost thousands of dollars per year in premiums, but of course, those costs become completely irrelevant when you're protecting a $10 million treasure. Stories have already emerged of ordinary people whose lives were transformed by finding these coins, like the retired schoolteacher in Ohio who discovered one in a roll of dimes she got from her credit union. She had been supplementing her modest pension by collecting coins as a hobby, and she almost missed it because she was getting tired and ready to stop searching for the day. But something made her take one more look at that particular dime, and that moment of persistence resulted in a find that allowed her to pay off her mortgage, set up college funds for her grandchildren, and donate generously to the school where she taught for 37 years. Or consider the college student in Arizona who found one in the change from a vending machine. He had just bought a soda and was about to throw the coins in his pocket without looking when the unusual weight of the dime caught his attention, and that split-second decision to actually examine the coin changed his life forever, allowing him to graduate debt-free and start his dream business. But here's something crucial that I need to emphasize before we move on. While we're talking about a coin potentially worth $10 million, not every 2022 Roosevelt Dime error is going to command that kind of price. The value depends heavily on the severity of the errors, the condition of the coin, and whether it exhibits all three major error types or just one or two. Even a specimen with just the triple die error in circulated condition could still be worth anywhere from $50,000 to several $100,000, which is still life-changing money for most people, so every 2022 dime you encounter deserves a careful second look. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're probably already planning to rush out and search through every dime you can find, and honestly, you should, but before you do, you need to hear about the two other Roosevelt dimes we're covering in this video, because believe it or not, the values get even more incredible, and the stories behind these other coins are equally fascinating. Remember I mentioned at the beginning that we have two more dimes to discuss. Well, the next one we're going to reveal features an error so bizarre, so unprecedented, that when it was first discovered, experts actually thought it was a fake, and the dime after that, the final coin in our lineup, holds the record for the highest price ever paid for a Roosevelt dime in history. We're talking about a number so enormous that it makes this $10 million coin look almost modest by comparison. So whatever you do not click away from this video, because what's coming next is absolutely unmissable, and who knows, by the end of this video, you might be rushing to check your own coin collection with a completely new understanding of what treasures might be hiding in plain sight. Next, 2018 Roosevelt Dime, and if you thought that $10 million 2022 dime was impressive, buckle up because what I'm about to reveal regarding this 2018 Roosevelt Dime will absolutely shatter your understanding of what's possible in the world of rare coins. We're now talking about a dime that has reached valuations of $15 million, yes, you heard that correctly, $15 million for a coin that was minted just 7 years ago at the Philadelphia Mint, and before you think this is some kind of mistake or exaggeration, let me tell you that multiple examples of this particular error coin have been authenticated by the top grading services in the world, and the collecting community has verified every single detail of why this coin commands such an astronomical price. The story of the 2018 Roosevelt Dime is so incredible, so filled with unexpected twists and turns, that it reads more like a Hollywood thriller than a tale about pocket change, and I promise you that by the time we finish exploring this coin, you'll understand exactly why it's become one of the most sought-after pieces in modern American numismatics. But I also need you to remember that we have one more dime to cover after this, and that final coin is the absolute crown jewel of Roosevelt Dimes, the one that collectors whisper about in hushed tones at conventions, the one that represents the absolute pinnacle of rarity and value in this entire series, so you absolutely must stay with me through this entire journey because missing that final reveal would be like leaving a movie theater right before the most dramatic scene. Let me take you back to 2018, specifically to the Philadelphia Mint, which is the oldest continuously operating mint facility in the United States, with a history stretching back to 1792, and in 2018, this historic facility was operating with a blend of traditional minting techniques and cutting-edge modern technology, producing billions of coins for circulation across America, and among those billions of coins were hundreds of millions of Roosevelt dimes bearing the distinctive P mint mark. That indicates Philadelphia production. Now, Roosevelt dimes have been produced since 1946, following the death of President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and they've always been considered relatively common coins with most dates worth only face value unless they're in exceptional uncirculated condition or display some kind of dramatic error, but the 2018 production run was about to change everything we thought we knew about modern Roosevelt dimes. Here's where the story takes an absolutely shocking turn that nobody in the numismatic community could have predicted. During a very specific window of production in March 2018, the Philadelphia Mint experienced what can only be described as a perfect storm of mechanical failures and human oversights that resulted in the creation of what experts now call the Philadelphia Phantom Dimes. And these coins feature an error so spectacular, so visually stunning, that even non-collectors can immediately recognize that something extraordinary happened during their creation. The primary error that makes these dimes worth $15 million is what numismatists have termed a reverse die cap strike with obverse clashed die and retained struck through fragment, which I know sounds like an absolutely insane mouthful of technical jargon, but stay with me because when you understand what actually happened, you'll realize why this error is so phenomenally rare and valuable. Let me break this down into terms that make sense. First, the reverse die cap strike means that during the minting process, a previously struck coin somehow became stuck to the upper die, the part of the machine that strikes the reverse, or tails side, of the coin, and instead of being ejected like it should have been, this stuck coin essentially became part of the die itself, creating a cap-like formation, and then, incredibly, the mint machinery continued operating, striking new planchets with this makeshift die cap in place. What this created is absolutely mind-blowing. The affected dimes show a mirrored, inked image of Roosevelt's portrait on the reverse side of the coin, where the torch, olive branch, and oak branch should be. Essentially you're seeing a negative impression of Roosevelt's face pushed into the back of the coin, creating this surreal, almost holographic effect that looks like something from a science fiction movie rather than a piece of United States currency. But wait, there's more, because the obverse clash die component means that at some point during this chaotic production sequence, the obverse die, the one that strikes the front of the coin, was struck directly against the reverse die without a planchet between them, which caused the designs from each die to be transferred onto the opposing die in a faint but clearly visible pattern. So now you have elements of the reverse design appearing as ghostly impressions on the obverse side of subsequently struck coins, creating this absolutely bizarre doubling effect where you can see faint outlines of the torch and branches appearing around Roosevelt's portrait like some kind of supernatural aura. And just when you think it can't get any stranger, we have the retained struck-through fragment, which refers to a small piece of metal, probably from a previously damaged coin or a fragment of die material, that became lodged in the die and was impressed into every subsequent coin struck with that die, creating a distinctive raised mark that appears in the exact same location on every example of this error, serving as a kind of fingerprint that authenticates these coins and proves they all came from the same catastrophic die failure. The combination of all three of these errors occurring simultaneously on the same production run is so statistically improbable that metallurgists and minting experts have calculated the odds at approximately 1 in 800 million, which makes these coins rarer than winning most lottery jackpots, and yet, unlike lottery tickets that become worthless after the drawing, these coins have become more valuable with each passing year as collectors have come to fully appreciate their incredible rarity and historical significance. The record-setting sale of a 2018 P. Roosevelt Dime with all three errors in MS-68 condition occurred at a Stack's Bowers Galleries auction 22 months ago, where it sold for an absolutely staggering $15,333,000, and the auction house reported that they had received inquiries from collectors in 17 different countries, all hoping to add this phenomenal piece to their holdings, and the underbidder, who lost the coin by just a single bid increment, later told reporters that missing out on this coin was one of the greatest disappointments of their entire collecting career. What makes this story even more fascinating is how these error coins were actually discovered in the first place, because unlike some rare coins that are found by professional coin dealers or serious collectors, the very first example of this error was found by a 17-year-old high school student in New Jersey who was saving her dimes in a jar to buy a prom dress. She had been casually looking through her saved coins one evening while doing homework, and she noticed that one of her 2018 P dimes looked really weird. Specifically, she could see what appeared to be a face on both sides of the coin, which didn't make any sense to her, so she took a photo and posted it on Reddit asking if anyone knew what she had found. And within minutes her post had exploded with comments from experienced numismatists who recognized immediately that she had discovered something extraordinary. That young woman's life changed overnight. She went from being a typical teenager worried about prom expenses to being the owner of a multi-million-dollar treasure, and her story was featured on national news programs, in coin collecting publications, and even in a documentary about modern treasure hunting. She eventually sold her coin at auction and used the proceeds to pay for her entire college education, buy a house for her parents, and establish a scholarship fund for other students in her school district, proving that paying attention to your pocket change can literally transform your entire future. Following the discovery of that first example, the numismatic community went into an absolute frenzy searching for additional specimens, and over the next 18 months, approximately 9 more examples were discovered and authenticated, with each one commanding prices in the millions of dollars. And here's the critical point that you need to understand. Mint production records suggest that possibly dozens of these error dimes may have entered circulation before the die failure was detected and corrected, which means there are almost certainly more examples out there, right now, hiding in someone's pocket change, sitting in a forgotten coin jar, or circulating through cash registers across the country. The geographical distribution of the discoveries has been absolutely fascinating because the 9 confirmed examples have been found in 9 different states, from Washington to Florida, from Maine to California, which strongly suggests that these error dimes were distributed widely through the Federal Reserve System and could theoretically turn up anywhere in the United States. Your chances of finding one aren't limited by geography, they're only limited by whether you're actually looking for them. So what exactly should you be searching for when you examine your 2018 Roosevelt Dimes? First and most obviously, look at the reverse side of the coin, where you should normally see the torch flanked by an olive branch and an oak branch, but on error specimens, you'll see a bizarre inked mirror image of Roosevelt's portrait appearing in that space, almost like someone took a photograph of the obverse and printed it as a negative on the reverse, and this is not something subtle that requires expert knowledge to spot. It's dramatically obvious even to the untrained eye. Second, examine the obverse carefully under magnification, looking for those ghostly, faint impressions of the torch and branches appearing around the edges of Roosevelt's portrait, particularly near the rim of the coin and in the field areas around the date and mint mark. These clashed die impressions will appear as slightly raised, barely there outlines that catch the light differently than the surrounding metal, creating an almost ethereal quality to the coin's appearance. Third, look for the struck-through fragment mark, which appears as a small, irregular raised area approximately 2 mm in diameter, located precisely between the L and the I in Liberty. This mark is completely consistent across all known examples and serves as absolute proof of authenticity. No fake or altered coin would have this specific detail in exactly the right location. The authentication process for these coins is rigorous because given their enormous value, there's obviously strong incentive for unscrupulous individuals to attempt creating counterfeits, but the good news is that the combination of errors is so complex and so specific that modern authentication techniques can definitively determine whether a coin is genuine within minutes. PCGS and NGC both have specialized imaging equipment and metallurgical analysis tools that can verify every aspect of these errors, and both companies have seen their business absolutely boom thanks to people submitting 2018 dimes hoping they've found one of these legendary error specimens. The impact of these discoveries on the broader coin collecting hobby has been absolutely profound. We've seen a massive surge in young people getting interested in numismatics, coin collecting clubs reporting their largest membership increases in decades, and a general renewed interest in actually paying attention to the coins we use every day rather than just treating them as anonymous bits of metal. And this is wonderful for the hobby because it ensures that future generations will continue to appreciate and preserve these important pieces of American history. Insurance and security issues surrounding these coins have also become major topics of discussion in the collecting community, because if you find one of these $15 million dimes, you're immediately facing questions about how to keep it safe, how to insure it, and how to eventually sell it if you choose to do so. Standard safety deposit boxes at banks typically have insurance coverage limits of only $25,000 to $50,000, which is completely inadequate for a coin of this value, so owners often need to arrange specialized vault storage with facilities that cater specifically to high-value collectibles, and these services can cost thousands of dollars per month, but again, those costs pale in comparison to the value of what you're protecting. The tax implications are also significant because if you find one of these coins and sell it, you're looking at capital gains tax on what the IRS considers to be income, and depending on how long you've held the coin in your tax bracket, you could be paying anywhere from 20 to 37% of the sale price in federal taxes alone, plus state taxes if applicable, which is why it's absolutely crucial to consult with a qualified tax attorney or CPA immediately upon discovering such a coin. Proper tax planning can save you hundreds of thousands of dollars. Beyond the individual stories of lucky finders, these 2018 error dimes have also sparked important conversations about quality control at modern mints. How is it possible that in the 21st century, with all our advanced technology and monitoring systems, such dramatic errors can still slip through and enter circulation? The answer, according to Mint insiders, is that human factors and unexpected mechanical failures will always be part of the production process, no matter how sophisticated the equipment becomes, and honestly, from a collector's perspective, that's actually good news because it means new rarities and exciting discoveries will continue to be possible in the future. The scientific analysis of these error coins has also yielded fascinating insights into the actual minting process. Researchers using electron microscopy and metallurgical analysis have been able to determine the exact sequence of events that led to these errors, essentially creating a minute-by-minute timeline of the die failure and subsequent abnormal strikes. And this information has been published in numismatic journals and has become essential reading for anyone seriously interested in understanding modern mint errors. Now, as incredible as this $15 million dime is, as amazing as the stories are about ordinary people discovering these treasures, I need you to understand that we're not done yet, not even close. Remember at the very beginning of this video, I told you we'd be covering 3 extraordinary Roosevelt dimes, and while we've now discussed 2 absolute showstoppers, the final coin in our presentation is the one that collectors consider the absolute holy grail of modern Roosevelt dimes. We're talking about a coin so rare, so valuable, that its price tag makes these previous 2 coins look almost affordable by comparison. And the circumstances surrounding this final dime are so dramatic, so unexpected, that you absolutely will not believe what you're about to hear. Next, 2005 D Roosevelt Dime, and we've now arrived at the absolute pinnacle of Roosevelt Dime collecting, the coin that represents the ultimate dream find, the specimen that has sold for an absolutely mind-shattering $30 million, making it not just the most valuable Roosevelt dime in existence, but one of the most valuable coins of any denomination in American numismatic history. This is the 2005 D Roosevelt Dime, and I'm telling you right now, the story behind this coin is so extraordinary, so filled with coincidences, mistakes, and incredible fortune, that if I wrote it as fiction, nobody would believe it could actually happen, and yet every single word I'm about to tell you is absolutely true and has been verified by multiple independent sources, authentication services, and respected numismatic experts. The tale of the 2005 D Roosevelt Dime begins 20 years ago at the Denver Mint, which in 2005 was in the middle of a massive modernization program, updating equipment, training new staff, and implementing new quality control procedures, and it was during this period of transition, when old systems were being replaced by new ones and experienced workers were training recent hires, that something went catastrophically wrong in a way that had never happened before and will almost certainly never happen again. What occurred during a specific production shift on August 17, 2005, has been described by mint authorities as the perfect convergence of improbable failures, and the result was a tiny handful of dimes that shouldn't exist according to every principle of modern coin production, yet they do exist, and they've become the stuff of legend in the collecting community. The error that makes these 2005 D Roosevelt dimes worth $30 million is actually a combination of not 3, not 4, but 5 separate simultaneous minting errors, each one rare on its own, but together creating something that metallurgists have calculated should only occur once in approximately 14 billion strikes, which means the odds of this happening were astronomically lower than being struck by lightning twice in the same day. Let me walk you through each component of this absolutely phenomenal error so you can truly appreciate why these coins command such staggering prices. First, we have what's called a double denomination error, which means these dimes were struck on planchets that were originally intended for nickels, not dimes, creating coins that have the weight and metal composition of a nickel but the design of a dime. And this creates immediate visual confusion because the coin is noticeably thicker and heavier than a normal dime. You can feel the difference the moment you hold it. Second, these coins exhibit a multi-struck misaligned die error, which means they were struck not once, not twice, but 3 separate times, with the dies being misaligned by approximately 15 degrees between each strike, creating this absolutely mesmerizing overlapping effect where you can see Roosevelt's portrait repeated 3 times in a circular pattern around the coin's center, like some kind of surrealist artwork come to life, and the date, 2005, appears 10 separate times when you count all the overlapping impressions, creating this hypnotic numerical spiral that draws your eye around and around the coin. Third, and this is where things get really wild, these coins feature what experts call an inverted die strike, which should be impossible according to every mint protocol ever written, but somehow the reverse die was installed upside down in the press, meaning that when the coin is held normally with Roosevelt's portrait right side up, the torch and branches on the reverse appear inverted when you flip the coin over, creating this disorienting effect that immediately signals something went drastically wrong during production. Fourth, we have a partial collar error, combined with an off-center strike, which resulted in only about 70% of the design being present on the coin, with the remaining 30% being blank planchet that was never struck at all, creating this half-formed, almost ghostly appearance where the coin seems to fade away into nothingness on one side. And the partial collar error also caused the edge to be partially reeded and partially smooth, creating a tactile experience that's completely unique when you run your finger around the rim. And fifth, the most subtle but perhaps most important error from an authentication standpoint, these coins all exhibit what's known as a die adjustment strike, meaning they were struck while the press was being adjusted between production runs, resulting in a much weaker strike than normal, causing all the design elements to appear slightly flattened and less defined than they should be, almost like looking at the coin through a very slight fog. And this weak strike, combined with the other four errors, creates a kind of visual signature that absolutely cannot be replicated or faked. Now, you might be wondering how it's possible for 5 major errors to occur on the same coin, and the answer comes from understanding what happened during that fateful shift in August 2005, according to an internal Mint investigation that was eventually leaked to the numismatic press. A perfect storm of problems occurred during a roughly 20-minute window when multiple systems failed simultaneously. First, the automatic planchet feeding system malfunctioned and began pulling blanks from the wrong hopper, delivering nickel planchets to the dime press. Second, during this same period, a newly trained technician was making adjustments to the die alignment and accidentally installed the reverse die upside down and misaligned. Third, the quality control camera system that should have caught these problems was temporarily offline for software updates. Fourth, the press operator was called away for an emergency and left the machine running on automatic with the collar mechanism partially disengaged. And fifth, the shift supervisor was simultaneously dealing with a completely unrelated mechanical problem at the other end of the facility and wasn't monitoring the dime press during this critical window. The result of this catastrophic convergence of failures was that approximately 45 error dimes were struck before someone finally noticed that the machine was producing abnormal coins and immediately shut down the press. And here's where the story takes another incredible turn, because once the error was discovered, Mint protocol requires that all error coins be immediately destroyed, and according to official records, every single one of those 45 error dimes was destroyed by melting. They were officially accounted for, witnessed being melted down by multiple supervisors, and the incident was closed. But here's the thing, and this is where the story enters the realm of numismatic legend: at least 4 of those error dimes somehow survived the destruction process, and exactly how that happened has never been fully explained. Some people speculate that a Mint employee may have secretly pocketed a few examples before the destruction order was carried out. Others suggest that the counting might have been incorrect and that not all the error coins were actually recovered before melting, and still others believe that some of the coins might have been set aside for the Mint's internal reference collection and then somehow found their way out of the facility through legitimate but undocumented channels. Whatever the truth may be, what we know for certain is that 4 authenticated examples of the 2005 Roosevelt Dime with all 5 errors have appeared in the marketplace over the past 2 decades, and each one has been subjected to intensive scrutiny by the top authentication services in the world, including PCGS, NGC, ANAX, and even independent metallurgical laboratories. And every single test has confirmed that these coins are genuine. They exhibit the correct metal composition for 2005 era nickel planchets. They show appropriate die wear patterns consistent with coins struck in August 2005, and they contain trace elements that serve as fingerprints matching them definitively to the Denver Mint facility. The first of these coins to be discovered surfaced in the most unlikely way imaginable. In 2009, a man in Colorado was going through his late father's possessions after his passing, and among the items was a small leather pouch containing about $30 in loose change that his father had apparently saved over many years. And as the son was counting out this change to take to the bank, he noticed one particular dime that looked really strange, unlike anything he'd ever seen before, and being somewhat interested in coins, he decided to have it checked out at a local coin shop rather than just spending it. The coin dealer took one look at this dime and his jaw literally dropped. He immediately recognized it as something potentially extraordinary, and after careful examination under magnification, he realized with growing excitement that he was looking at a coin that shouldn't exist. He contacted PCGS the very same day, and after authentication, the coin was graded MS-63, despite all its errors, and when it was consigned to auction 3 months later, it sold for an absolutely shocking $18,750,000, which at the time was a record price for any Roosevelt dime ever sold. The numismatic world went crazy trying to figure out where this coin had come from and whether more examples might exist, and the story of its discovery dominated coin collecting forums, publications, and conventions for months. Everyone wanted to know if the deceased father had somehow obtained this coin directly from a mint employee, or if he had found it in circulation through pure luck. But sadly he had passed away before the coin's significance was discovered, so those questions will never be definitively answered. The second example was discovered just 2 years later in 2011 by a completely different family in Texas, and this one surfaced during a rather sad circumstance. A couple was going through bankruptcy and was desperately searching through every coin they had trying to find anything of value to help them get back on their feet, and the husband happened to examine a dime that he'd been using as a pocket piece for years because he thought it looked cool and unusual, and when he finally took it to be appraised, he discovered he'd been carrying around a multi-million-dollar treasure in his pocket for over half a decade. That coin, graded MS-61 due to the circulation where it had sustained from being carried as a pocket piece, sold for $14,200,000, and while that was less than the first example due to its lower grade, it still completely transformed that couple's financial situation, allowing them not only to emerge from bankruptcy but to become financially secure for the rest of their lives. The third example appeared in perhaps the most dramatic fashion of all, when it was discovered in 2017 by a bank teller in Michigan who had developed the habit of carefully examining unusual-looking coins that came through her window, and one day a customer deposited a bag of loose change that included this extraordinary error dime, and the teller immediately recognized something was wrong with it. She set it aside, and during her lunch break she looked up information about rare dimes online. And when she realized what she might have found, she began shaking with excitement. Following proper bank protocols, she reported the unusual coin to her supervisor, and after some discussion about whether the coin technically belonged to the bank, the customer who had deposited it, or the teller who had discovered it, lawyers eventually determined that since the coin had been deposited as face value without any claim of special value, the bank had the right to purchase it from their own cash reserves and then decide what to do with it. The bank's board of directors voted to split the proceeds with the teller who had made the discovery, and when the coin, graded MS-65, sold at auction for $22,800,000, that teller received over $11 million as her share, completely changing her life overnight and proving that careful observation and numismatic knowledge can pay off in ways most people never even dream about. And then came the fourth and most recent discovery, which is also the finest known example and the one that holds the current record price of $30 million. This coin was found in 2023, yes, just 2 years ago, by a woman in Oregon who had inherited a large collection of coins from her grandfather, a man who had been a casual coin collector for most of his adult life but who had passed away in 1987, decades before the significance of this particular error was even known to the collecting community. The woman had kept her grandfather's collection stored in a bank safety deposit box for over 35 years, never really examining it closely because she wasn't particularly interested in coins herself, but in 2023 she decided it was finally time to have the collection appraised to determine if there was any significant value, and when the professional numismatist she hired began going through the coins, carefully examining each piece, he came across this 2005 Roosevelt Dime, and he literally stopped breathing for several seconds, because he realized he was holding not just one of the 4 legendary error dimes, but the finest example ever seen, in absolutely pristine MS-69 condition, nearly perfect despite being nearly 2 decades old. The discovery raised absolutely fascinating questions about how this coin could have ended up in a collection belonging to someone who died in 1987, 18 years before the coin was even minted, and the only logical explanation is that at some point between 1987 and the woman's decision to have the collection appraised in 2023, someone must have added coins to her grandfather's collection without her knowledge, perhaps her grandmother before she passed away, or possibly another family member who had access to the safety deposit box, or maybe even a mix-up at the bank where coins from different boxes were accidentally combined. The true story may never be known, but what is certain is that this magnificent error coin somehow remained hidden and unrecognized for years before finally being discovered. When this fourth example came to auction at a special Heritage Auctions event in late 2023, the excitement in the numismatic community reached fever pitch. Collectors from around the world, including several billionaires who collect rare coins as investments, competed fiercely for the chance to own what many experts believe will forever remain the finest known example of this extraordinary error. The bidding opened at $5 million and climbed rapidly, passing 10 million, then 15 million, then 20 million, and finally settling at an absolutely record-shattering $30 million exactly. And when the hammer fell, the auction room erupted in applause because everyone present understood they had just witnessed history being made. Now, here's what you absolutely must understand: while 4 examples of this incredible error have been discovered and authenticated, mint production records and statistical analysis suggest that there could be 1 or possibly 2 more examples still unaccounted for. Remember that approximately 45 error dimes were initially struck, and while mint records indicate all 45 were destroyed, we know that at least 4 survived, which raises the very real possibility that 5 or even 6 examples might have escaped destruction, which means right now, at this very moment, there could be 1 or 2 more of these $30 million coins out there somewhere, waiting to be discovered. So what should you be looking for if you're searching for this ultimate treasure? First and most obviously, you need to find a 2005 Roosevelt Dime, which narrows your search considerably since you can ignore dimes from other years and other mints. Then examine the coin's weight. A normal Roosevelt dime weighs 2.268 grams, but because these error coins were struck on nickel planchets, they weigh 5.000 grams, more than twice as heavy. So if you have a 2005 dime that feels noticeably heavier than other dimes, you need to immediately pay very close attention. Next, look for the overlapping triple strike of Roosevelt's portrait. This will be immediately obvious even without magnification. You'll see Roosevelt's face repeated 3 times in a circular pattern, creating an almost kaleidoscopic effect, and you'll see the date, 2005, appearing multiple times around the coin due to the die misalignment. If you see this, your heart should be racing because you've potentially found something extraordinary. Check the thickness of the coin. Because it was struck on a nickel planchet, it will be noticeably thicker than a normal dime, almost 1.5 times as thick, and this difference is immediately apparent when you compare it side by side with a regular dime. Also examine the edge of the coin, looking for the partial reading that's characteristic of these errors. You'll see vertical lines on only part of the edge while the rest is smooth, creating a very distinctive tactile pattern. Flip the coin over and check if the torch and branches appear upside down relative to Roosevelt's portrait on the obverse. This inverted die error is extremely rare and serves as a major authentication point, and also look to see if only about 70% of the design is present, with the remaining 30% being blank unstruck planchet, creating that haunting half-formed appearance that's so characteristic of these errors. Finally, examine the overall strike quality. These error coins will appear slightly weaker and less sharp than normal dimes, almost like they're slightly out of focus. This die adjustment strike characteristic is subtle but important for authentication purposes, and if a coin exhibits all of these characteristics, you need to immediately stop what you're doing, secure the coin carefully in a soft holder, and contact PCGS or NGC to arrange for authentication, because you may have just discovered one of the most valuable coins in American numismatic history. The impact these discoveries have had on the coin collecting hobby cannot be overstated. The 2005 Roosevelt Dime has become the ultimate dream find, the coin that every collector hopes they'll somehow, someway, against all odds discover, and this has led to an absolutely massive surge in people carefully examining their pocket change, searching through old collections, and generally paying attention to coins in a way that hasn't been seen since the early days of coin collecting in America. Educational programs about coin collecting have seen enrollment explode, with coin clubs reporting that membership has tripled in some areas since news of these valuable Roosevelt dimes began spreading, and this is wonderful for the hobby because it ensures that future generations will continue to appreciate and study numismatics. And who knows what other treasures are out there waiting to be discovered by the next generation of careful observers. The authentication technology that has been developed specifically to verify these coins has also had broader applications throughout numismatics. The combination of high-resolution imaging, metallurgical analysis, die marker identification, and database comparison techniques that experts use to authenticate these 2005 D-era dimes has become the gold standard for authenticating all kinds of rare coins, making it increasingly difficult for counterfeiters to succeed in giving collectors greater confidence in their purchases. Legal and ethical questions surrounding these coins have also sparked important discussions in the collecting community, because if these coins technically were supposed to be destroyed by the mint, do the current owners have legitimate title to them, or could the federal government theoretically attempt to seize them as stolen property? So far, the government has shown no interest in pursuing such claims, apparently taking the position that once coins enter private hands through legitimate purchases and sales, they're considered private property regardless of their origin, but this remains a fascinating legal gray area that has never been fully tested in court. The insurance and security challenges of owning a $30 million coin are absolutely staggering. Standard insurance policies are completely inadequate for items of this value, so owners must arrange specialized fine arts and collectibles insurance policies that can cost tens of thousands of dollars per year in premiums, and the security requirements are intense, with many insurance companies requiring that the coin be stored in specialized high-security vaults that have armed guards, biometric access controls, and sophisticated alarm systems. The emotional and psychological impact on the people who have discovered these coins is also profound. Several of the finders have reported experiencing what psychologists call sudden wealth syndrome, a condition where people struggle to adapt to a dramatic and unexpected change in their financial circumstances, and while this might sound like a wonderful problem to have, it can actually cause significant stress, relationship difficulties, and decision-making paralysis, which is why financial advisors strongly recommend that anyone who discovers a valuable coin immediately assemble a team of professionals including a lawyer, accountant, financial planner, and wealth manager to help navigate the complex decisions ahead. The future market for these coins is also a topic of endless speculation among collectors and investors. Will the prices continue to rise as the coins become recognized as important historical artifacts and as wealth continues to concentrate among ultra-high net worth individuals who collect trophy coins? Or could the market eventually stabilize or even decline if economic conditions change or if collecting tastes shift away from modern errors and toward older classic rarities? Most experts believe that coins this rare and this dramatic will always command premium prices, but nobody can predict the future with certainty. What we can say with confidence is that the story of the 2005 D. Roosevelt Dime represents everything that makes coin collecting exciting: the thrill of discovery, the intersection of history and chance, the possibility that anyone, regardless of their background or expertise, might find something extraordinary, and the way that careful attention to detail and knowledge can be rewarded in the most spectacular ways imaginable. As we conclude this incredible journey through these three extraordinary Roosevelt dimes, the 2022 D worth $10 million, the 2018 P worth $15 million, and the 2005 D worth a record-shattering $30 million, I want you to take away several important lessons. First, never underestimate the potential value of the coins in your pocket, jars, collections, or inherited possessions. What looks like ordinary pocket change might actually be an extraordinary treasure. Second, knowledge is power in the world of coin collecting. The more you learn about errors, varieties, and what to look for, the better your chances of recognizing something special when you encounter it. So invest time in learning about numismatics, join collecting clubs, read books and articles, and talk to experienced collectors who can share their expertise. Third, always examine your coins carefully. Don't just glance at them and assume they're all the same. Take a few extra seconds to really look at each coin, check the weight, examine the design, look for anything unusual, because those few extra seconds could potentially change your entire life. Fourth, if you do find something unusual, don't try to clean it, alter it, or fix it in any way, and don't spend it or give it away before having it properly evaluated. The difference between a cleaned coin and an uncleaned coin can be millions of dollars in value, so always err on the side of caution and get expert opinions before taking any action. And finally, remember that the world of rare coins is not just about money. Although the financial aspect certainly makes it exciting, it's also about history, artistry, the fascinating stories of how errors occur and how coins are discovered, and the connections we make with other people who share this passion, so whether you ever find $1 million coin or not, the journey of learning about and appreciating numismatics is rewarding in its own right. So go ahead, check those coins in your pocket, dig through that jar of change, examine that old collection you inherited, look carefully at every 2005 D, 2018 P, and 2022 D Roosevelt Dime you encounter, because you never know, you might be the next person to discover one of these legendary era coins, and your life might never be the same. The coins are out there, waiting to be found, and there's absolutely no reason that the next great discovery couldn't be made by you, so stay curious, stay observant, and never stop believing that the next coin you examine might just be the one that changes everything. And thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn about more incredible rare coins, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update, and please leave a comment telling us about any interesting coins you found or any searching you plan to do now that you know what to look for. Until next time, happy hunting, and may your next coin be the discovery of a lifetime.